Passenger, I'm a paramedic with Louisville Metro EMS. I've been there since 2006.
Since 2006, you said?
Yes, ma'am. I started as an EMT. I got my paramedic 4 years. So 2010, I got my paramedic.
Did you respond in the early morning hours of August 6th of 2016 to the Taylorsville Road exit off of the Gene Snyder?
Yes, ma'am.
You did. And did you interact with the defendant, Bradley Caraway?
Yes. He looks a little different, but yes.
You did. You said you've been a paramedic and with LME at Louisville Metro EMS since 2006.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about your background and your training and qualifications.
So my EMT class, so there are 3 levels. In Kentucky, we recognize advanced. Basic is the lowest, then we have advanced EMTs and the paramedics. My EMT course was put on through Louisville Metro government. It lasted a month, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type hours. And then we would have to do ride time, take national exam, and so you get your EMT basic. I never was an advanced. I went straight to paramedic. That's about a 2-year program between school. You do school and clinical hours and hospitals and different departments. You do it in labor and delivery. You do it in the ER. You do pediatric, so there's a list you have to complete. When I did it, it was a lot more hours than they do now. And then, of course, you have to do training on an ambulance. I think I did about 500 hours in my off time on an ambulance to be my paramedic, and then another national exam to get that certification.
And as a paramedic, are you allowed to administer a higher level of treatment than a basic EMT?
Yes, ma'am. So the basic can do some medications like aspirin and nitroglycerin if people have prescribed it. Advanced can do IVs. Paramedics can do the most. We can do heart monitoring. We can interpret rhythms where no one else can interpret them. So I can look at a rhythm and say what it is. Other basics and advanced, they put it on and it'll print out and I can read what it says. But often what it says isn't what it is. No, it's here and there. Sometimes there'll be a heart attack and it won't flag it. And so I know how to see that instead of the computer. So
Ultimately, you have a lot more training as a paramedic than a regular EMT does.
A bag of drugs, a bag of airways, yes, the top training for EMS.
And how many incidents would you say you have responded to since 2003?
I can't even imagine.
Hundreds, thousands?
I would say thousands. Louisville EMS makes over 100,000 a year, and so I'd say over thousands since I've been with EMS.
And you served the whole county?
Yes. So we still serve the whole county. However, now other departments have their ambulances. So Middletown now has ambulances and merge with Anchorage. But if there's no coverage, we go to Middletown to make a run. We don't sit trucks there now since they have trucks. But if they're out and runs and somebody needs an ambulance, we would make that.
So we've already heard from a couple of police officers that they contacted EMS to respond to the Taylorsville Road ramp off the Gene Snyder. Is that generally how you all get dispatched out? A call comes in and you go where you're called?
Yes. I mean, police aren't always, it's not the norm for the police to call it in, but it's a percent, like 10% maybe police call in. So it's not, normally it's a civilian caller, but
But somebody calls it in and you respond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in this case, what time did you respond to that Taylorsville Road exit ramp?
I run forms on my phone that I can estimate, or I can.
But we don't want you
What-
to estimate, so you mentioned a run form.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you document your treatment of every patient that you interact with?
Yes, ma'am,
And do
absolutely.
you produce a report?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you were able to take a look at that report, would that help you give us accurate
Yeah,
times?
yes, they're on the times are on there for when we get dispatched, when we go en route, when we get on scene, when we transport, when we're at the hospital, and then when we clear the hospital.
Judge, if I may approach?
You may.
And I'm going to hand you a copy of your report.
Sorry.
Okay, so right there on page 1, if you could tell us
Nope.
what time the call was received,
Call received was 06:49, and,
on August 6th of 2016,
yes, ma'am.
and what time did you arrive on scene?
We got on scene at 7:07.
And then I'm going to skip around your report just a little bit, but when you arrived, can you please tell the jury what the defendant's appearance was?
Well, in my notes I had, it said he was sitting in front of a police car, no shirt on. I remember he had socks on, but the bottoms were worn off, so they were just kind of on his ankles, and then some pretty much abrasions to his front and back side of the torso. So chest and abdomen and back had abrasions.
Medically speaking, what are abrasions?
Of scratches, superficial scratches that usually, you know, you may get a little blood, but usually not a lot. So scratch.
So he was not wearing a shirt, did not have shoes on, and his socks were shredded. And did you obtain a history of what happened, or did you attempt to obtain a history of what happened to
I
him?
did, yes.
Why is it important for you to get a history before treating a patient?
Well, so we call it depends on, I guess, nature of what we're treating. You know, with trauma, it's important to know what possibly took place. You know, in my note, in my narrative, I put, so the police had said that he had been in a car wreck. So if somebody's in a car wreck, it's important for us to know if they have a seatbelt on, if they're airbag deployed, what part of the car is damaged, because we're looking at that to determine what possible injuries they have inside. So, you know, the bumper has a dent in it versus, you know, the dash is inside the car. You can kind of tell that that person with a dash in the car has a higher probability for injury than a bent bumper would.
So it's important for you to know what happened in order to administer the appropriate treatment. Is that fair?
Yes.
And looking at your report, when asked what happened, what did the defendant say? And if you could just read it for us.
Okay. Sorry, these aren't, usually I don't see the printed and the layout's a lot different on the computers.
And I'm looking at page 5 of 6, if that helps.
Let's see. Okay, so I will start. It says, when asked what happened, patient says he was out with friends in St. Matthews last night and caught a cab that dropped him off on the expressway, and he walked from there to where the police found him.
Okay.
To continue, or is that?
Yes.
Okay. Patient is not very giving with events or timelines, but says he's not injured.
Okay. So he let you know that he was not injured.
Yes.
He did not report being involved in
No.
in a motor vehicle collision.
No. He said he had no injury or illness and wanted to refuse treatment and transport, which if you are a conscious, alert, or an adult, you can do such. You can't force anyone to go to the hospital against their will unless they are unable to make medical decisions. So I spoke to the police. They said that he was in custody, and for him to go to jail, they had to have him medically cleared.
Now, you also, so he didn't report being involved in a motor vehicle collision. However, the police suspected that he was, and they relayed that information to
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
And based on that, did you administer any sort of medical treatment?
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to take my patient's word, but I'm going to also, I mean, I don't believe the police are liars, but I'm not going to lose my numbers over something like this. So I would, if anybody suspects, and he was once he found out he was in custody, he was agreeable to treatment. He did not want to, he understood and didn't, just kind of went along with what I was going to do. So, yes, I've treated him for a worst case scenario, that he was in a rollover MVA, motor vehicle accident or collision. So yes, I treated him as though that were the case.
And did you place any special apparatuses on him?
Yes, I put him in a cervical collar, and I put him on a long spine board. I did an EKG, a 12 lead, an EKG, the heart thing. The 12 lead shows us more in depth of use of the heart. So just an EKG and 12 lead. When we put them on, we usually I leave them on, so I left my 4 leads on, so the whole time I had him, it was showing me his rhythm, did vital signs, including, so that would be blood pressure, blood sugar, I did a blood sugar on him, and then the cervical collar, the long board. So I didn't note in here, but I know I did it, and I remember doing it. Anytime someone is in a motor vehicle accident where someone dies, whether it's a different car, whether it's the same car, our protocol is to call university since they're the trauma hospital.
Is that where you took the defendant, Bradley
Yes,
Caraway?
absolutely. Just because I'm thinking worst case scenario, so I want the best outcome for worst case scenario. So U of L's a trauma center. I did call them on the radio and let them know we were coming, and that he had no complaints, no denying injuries. The police thought he was in a with a fatality because that's our policy. So I did call them on the radio and let them know we were coming.
So based on the information that police provided to you, that this was a pretty serious rollover crash that involved a fatality,
Yes.
you placed a cervical collar on the defendant, placed
Yes.
him on a long board, and took him to the University of Louisville Hospital.
That's correct.
Okay. But he never admitted to being involved in that rollover motor vehicle crash?
No, he did not.
And did you get his information?
Yes.
I'm skipping back to your page 1.
Yes. He
Were
did.
were you able to get his name from him?
Yes.
What about his social security number?
So initially, I'm not sure who gave me the name, but social security number may have come from police also. But other than that, I would have gotten the rest from him. And he has medical history in there, so the police wouldn't have had that. So if he's given me medical history, then I got his address from him, and there's a phone number in there. So I got those from him.
So you were able to get a phone number from him,
That's correct.
and you got a date of birth. Can you please tell us what his date of birth was at the time that you interacted with him?
Yes. If I can find the page, I will do it.
One of 6.
Okay. I have it documented as 10/1 of 1981.
And how old did that make him at the time?
That would have made him 34.
You said you got his address.
That's correct.
What was his address at the time?
It is 3805 Chamberlain Lane, Louisville, Kentucky 40241.
Can we approach with Commonwealth 206?
You may.
All right, Mr. Hettinger, does this map depict the address that we just talked about? 3805 Chamberlain Lane?
It looks like it. The Chamberlain's not on here, but from my knowledge, it looks like that's where Chamberlain Lane is, yes.
And it also depicts the Gene Snyder.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move to introduce Commonwealth 206.
No objection.
All right, it'll be so admitted.
All right, Mr. Hettinger, you mentioned that you checked the defendant's vitals,
Yes, ma'am.
and were those normal?
It looked like his blood pressure was a little elevated, nothing, and heart rate were a little elevated, but nothing, that was alarming.
Did you also conduct a full body assessment of him?
Yes.
You did. Let's go through that.
Other than, I'm assuming he was wearing shorts, so I didn't get into, remove shorts or anything like that. So
Okay,
full
so-
body, we can limit that.
Almost a full body
I
assessment.
want to be clear.
I appreciate that. Okay, did you check his airway?
Yes, but when someone's speaking and their airway is clear,
So his airway was clear?
yes, I mean, it just is breathing. You can tell by looking that someone's airway is clear for the most part.
And did you check his face down to the right ear,
Yes.
right eye,
Yes.
the neck, the chest?
Yes.
Okay. Aside from the few scratches that you already mentioned, did he have any significant injuries that you noted?
I'm going to have to find the page and verify, but mostly I just recall the abrasions.
And I'm specifically looking at page 2 of 6. Your assessment.
The two, I apologize. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the chest, documented a few of the abrasions, and then I wrote a few scratches. Because scratches aren't in there, it's just abrasions, so that's why I kind of clarified with scratches. Upper back, documented numerous scratches under the abrasions as well. Do you mean to put what was normal? My apologies, I was just going to what was abnormal.
That's okay. So you said you documented a few scratches on the lower back, on the chest.
Yes.
I believe the right upper quadrant.
I believe it's in all 4 quadrants. There were
What-
some abrasions.
When we talk about quadrants, where on the body are you
I'm
talking
talking
about?
abdomen. We split that off into the 4 quadrants. Kind of just below, like where your ribs are, starts your abdomen, and it goes down to a little bit below your waistline. So you split it into 4ths.
So he, basically, what we are looking at here overall is we had scratches on the front, some on his back, and some on his legs. Those were the injuries.
Yes.
And everything else that you checked was normal.
Yes.
Did you also check for any sort of loss of consciousness?
That's not something we can detect if it happened before we were there.
But at the time when you saw him,
He was never unconscious when he was with me.
was he alert?
Yes.
Was he oriented?
Yes,
Did you note that in your report?
I did.
All right, so he was alert, oriented with some scratches, and you took him to the University of Louisville Hospital.
Yes, ma'am.
And did that conclude your interaction with the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
Those are all.
I imagine, when we get to the hospital, we probably had triage, so gave the nurse report of his complaints and what the police were saying. So she had both stories.
But you handed him off?
Yes,
And you left
and
the
then
scene
left.
to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
next run?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Those are all the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, cross-examination.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
When the prosecutor asked you, well, he seemed normal and so forth, you can't rule out, as you've stated, you can't rule out loss of consciousness earlier, correct?
Absolutely, no, we can't.
Or a concussion earlier, correct? In fact, you didn't do that. You didn't rule those things out, correct?
No, that's not in my abilities.
Right. That's one of the reasons you take the person to the hospital. correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And if the hospital said loss of consciousness unknown, head injury unknown, you wouldn't disagree with that, would you?
No, I mean, they have more tools. I would hope that that would not have been the final diagnosis, but with it happening hours before, of course, that is a possibility. I haven't seen.
So this guy could have had a concussion, loss of memory, all those things without you seeing it hours later.
Absolutely. I mean, he
All
had
right.
all kinds of things hours before.
Okay, now I want to ask you some more questions. That you looked at his head and so forth, and you would note things that you saw, correct?
Yes. Yes, yes, sir, I would.
Did you note bleeding in the forehead?
I don't believe I did.
Pardon me?
I don't believe I did. That's the only place that where the scratch is. I didn't put anything on the forehead.
All right. Did you notice glass in the forehead?
No, however, I'm not gonna look that close. Like, I'm not a forensics person,
So if
so
you saw blood,
if I saw blood, I would.
you noticed. And you didn't see any blood?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, in terms of, the situation that you saw the defendant in, he has no shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
No shoes.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall that he was intoxicated?
Do not.
Okay, so you didn't even realize he was intoxicated?
He was very quiet. His behavior was that of, he was able to answer my questions, knew the year. No, I didn't know he was intoxicated.
Okay,
I
if
mean,
the police had described that, would you disagree with them?
no, because they're trained to do examinations.
All right. Now, I want to ask, if I can, when you see him, he's in front of the police car, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. And so this idea about whether he's involved in an accident, police already had him, he was in custody, correct?
He was sitting down. I don't recall if he had handcuffs on or if they just had him sitting on the ground.
He wasn't leaving, right?
He wasn't leaving, that's
No,
correct.
he wasn't leaving, he's with police, and police had already, they told you, hell, they were telling everyone he was in an accident, correct?
I mean, I don't know who everyone is.
They told
but
you, yes.
They said they suspected he was in an accident, yes.
All right. And finally, when you saw the defendant, you thought he should go to a hospital, correct?
So, the police, as far as I remember, the police said that they suspected he was in a motor vehicle accident and there was fatality, and that means my brain is he needs to go to a hospital. Yes, if he was involved in a motor vehicle accident where someone died, they need to go to that
You need to go
person.
to a hospital, get checked out.
Absolutely.
All right. And that's why you all immobilized him, correct?
The mobilization is for fractures. If you had any neck or back fractures, rollover, you're going to go all kinds of directions.
Exactly. And so you all put him in the ambulance and took him to the hospital,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, because as you said, he could have had a concussion, he could have had loss of consciousness previously, he could have head injuries, correct? You didn't take him to the hospital for no reason. You thought it was important in a rollover accident for him to be checked out, correct?
Yes, you can have internal bleeding in your belly, you can have it in your head, you could have you can fracture. Believe it or not, you can fracture solid organs. I know it sounds weird, but you can fracture organs, you can rupture organs. So we look at we call it the mechanism of injury, and I didn't know what happened. I was just going to treat the man for worst case scenario. In case this did happen, then he would be at the right place and have the right treatment.
And I know you note this, do these reports and you note the injuries that you see, correct?
Yes,
And as you stated, you noted no bleeding, noticed no bleeding in the forehead.
I didn't notice any, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Hettinger,
Yes, ma'am.
you let us know that you are not concerned about forensics.
No, that's not my job.
That's not your job.
And I'm not trained in it.
You're not trained.
Either, no.
You're administering just immediate aid to a patient.
Yes, ma'am.
And in general, you're administering that aid to a patient in order to get them to a hospital, to get them to a doctor that can provide the full medical care that you can't do out of your ambulance.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned during Mr. Eggert's questioning that the defendant was able to answer your questions.
Yes, ma'am.
He knew the year.
Yes, ma'am.
You already told us he was alert,
Yes, ma'am.
oriented,
Yes, ma'am.
and he didn't report being involved in a motor vehicle collision.
No, he said he had been in St. Matthews and got a cab that dropped him off on the expressway.
Cab dropped him off on the expressway.
That's what was reported to me.
He had scratches
Yes, ma'am.
all over his body.
Yes, ma'am.
And based on what police told you, not what he reported,
Yes, ma'am.
you decided to treat him for the worst case scenario.
Yes, ma'am. He didn't have any complaints and denied injuries and wanted to refuse. So all the treatment he got was based upon what the police reported to me, because somebody, if I didn't have any of that information, and let's say he wanted to go, I would have just left him in a chair if he had no complaints and no one was reporting he was in a car accident. So if he had like another, unrelated to trauma, I guess.
But he never reported being involved in a collision.
No.
Not a rollover collision,
No.
not any kind of collision.
No. Because I know when I called U of L on the radio, I told them that he had no complaints. He usually, will give a report what their complaint is, what kind of event took place, and their vital signs. And we're calling for the trauma room, because if they want them in the trauma room, we'll go straight to the trauma room. So it gives them a notice for coming in. And I remember that I had to explain, I was coming in with someone with no complaints, that it was reported that he was possibly in a rollover accident with fatality several hours earlier.
And Mr. Hettinger, I think I failed to publish the map that we introduced. Your Honor, permission to publish that map at this time?
You may.
Okay, so you told us you responded to the Taylorsville Road exit off of the Gene Snyder, which is right about here.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the defendant's address is up the Gene Snyder at this red dot, that 3805 Chamberlain Lane. You told us that's the address he gave you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else of this witness?
Very briefly. Police were with the defendant, correct?
When I arrived, yes.
Yes. And obviously, police knew there'd been an accident. They told you there'd been an accident, correct?
Yes, that didn't necessarily, they said he was suspected of being in the car and that he was going
So
to be
they already knew.
in
correct?
custody.
They told you he'd been in an accident, correct?
They said, as far as I recall, they did not say he was in one. They said they
Car
suspected that he had been in an accident, that there was an accident several hours earlier.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Anything more?
No, Your Honor. Thank
You
you.
can step down, thank you.